Hey everyone, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. Yesterday my heating and air guys finally showed up with the replacement part for my Mitsubishi mini split. So I didn't get much done work-wise yesterday because they were right in here tearing this thing apart, fixing it, but it's really nice again. It is working, it's quiet, it's not making noise. But it gave me a chance to go through comments, emails, messages I've received lately. So there was a few good questions out there. So I printed some of them out. I put some down, and that's what I'm going to answer in some of the next few videos that we do. Another great one that I really liked was it asked, how do I deal with the curve on knives on all the different machines? Could I show how I do the curved part on different knives? And I thought that was also a good one because I do get a lot of questions from people about especially the TS Prof and how you deal with curved knives. And then the last one that I'm going to address, because there's quite a few questions, and I've been getting this question a lot lately because we have a lot of people now on the channel. So we have people that are wanting to start sharpening businesses, but I regularly get questions too from people that just want to sharpen their own things. And they're like, what's the best sharpener for me? I only want to sharpen my own stuff. And I'm going to answer that question too. And I think what I'm going to do is also, again, highlight each one of the different sharpeners and maybe go a little bit more into who I think they're for. If you fall into that category of that, you're just looking for a good sharpener for yourself and maybe not necessarily looking to start a business, but should that change, this might be something that will work well into the tools that you have. If you do down the road decide to start a sharpening business, it's something worth having. And how do I know that? Because, well, it's in my shop. Because if it wasn't worth having, I wouldn't have it in here. I would replace it with some other piece of gear that works better. So those are the things I'm going to be answering over. It definitely won't be one video. It might be a few videos over the next few days. Looking through those, there was two that I wanted to respond to. It basically said, Tormex 2 hollow grinds. That's the weakest grind of them all. You're an idiot. I would never put that on a kitchen knife. So I'm going to address that. I won't even be mean. Let's just say uninformed comment. And then there was another question that I thought was much better, which said, Paul, I know you have Tormex machines and 2x42s and 1x30s and TS Profs and other sharpeners. How is it you decide which item you're going to use? What are some of the factors that go into picking the machine that you want to use for that particular thing? And I thought that was a great question. So I'm going to answer both. But let's start with the first one with our uninformed gentleman who seems to think that sharpening a kitchen knife on a Tormex is a bad thing to do because it's a hollow grind and that's it's the weakest of the types of grinds. I can tell you right now, this is a person who's probably spent too much time on knife forums and reading all kinds of stuff. I've printed out just 4 of the basic types of grinds, and we're gonna talk about these a little bit, all right? But I'm not gonna go into tons and tons of detail. There are more than just this, but what I printed out here is the flat grind, the Scandi grind, the hollow grind, and the convex grind. They're very, very popular and some of the most common ones you're going to see. There is also chisel grinds, and with all of these grinds also, you could also still have a secondary bevel. Without getting into too much detail and craziness and confusing people, I just want to make a couple things clear. This is my opinion. You're welcome to disagree if you want to. When we're dealing with types of grinds, we are typically dealing with knives similar to hunting knives, craft knives, EDCs, when it comes to kitchen knives, this stuff's not really very important. And here's what I will say to you, okay? So yes, it's well known and it's not disputed really by anybody that the weakest grind is a hollow grind, technically speaking. It has less metal behind the apex to support it. So of all these other grinds, it would be the weakest. The strongest being the convex grind. Now, the hollow grind, though, is also one of the sharpest grinds out there. But here's what was kind of, in my opinion, uninformed. Like, again, I'll be nice, by the person who said, oh, I would never put that on a kitchen knife. When we're talking a Tormek, here's a typical kitchen knife. It's generally a flat grind. And we're talking a bevel edge that goes down to the apex that is incredibly small, super small. A true hollow grind is something like this, which this is basically a hunting skinning knife for skinning a deer or an elk. And this is an actual true hollow grind. And what that means is basically this giant bevel has a hollow ground into it and it is not straight. And I'll show you how simply you can tell the difference between some grinds and others. Hopefully you guys can see this, but I'm going to take this business card here and I'm going to put it right on this edge. And if you look, you will see there is light between that primary bevel and going all the way down to the apex. There's light showing through because this is a hollow grind. Okay, so here's our hollow grind knife. I'm holding up to light to help you guys see that hollow. Okay, do you see that little swoop of sliver of light coming out from underneath? That shows you that this is hollow ground. Okay, but you can see how big this primary bevel is too, right? Okay, here's the Moore knife with the Scandi grind, and let's put it on its bevel. And you'll see there is no light coming through because it is a Scandi grind and not a hollow grind. So we have nothing showing through. And then here's our typical kitchen knife. And again, no light showing through at all. It is not hollow ground. And I mean, seriously, are we gonna go right on the apex and try and call that a hollow grind? I just don't see it. And when we're talking hollow grinds, we're pretty much talking knives very similar to this. We're not talking a kitchen knife, your standard kitchen knife, which is really a straight grind that goes down right to usually a secondary bevel and you apex it, and that's your basic kitchen knife. Now, when you're grinding on a wheel, on a round wheel, and someone says, oh, you're creating a hollow grind on that Tormek with this kitchen knife, I'm here to tell you, you're not really creating a hollow grind, all right? It's created typically on a belt, and people will put something behind the belt. Sometimes it's leather, sometimes it's, other things to push that belt out, which grinds out that area behind it and creates that little hollow, hence a hollow grind. When we're dealing with a kitchen knife, we typically see sometimes grinds like this, which is a primary bevel that is coming down. So we have the main part of the knife, then we have a primary bevel, and then we have a secondary bevel that they sharpen. Very common. Also, this is, again, not a hollow grind at all, because if you go down that bevel, you'll see there's no light coming through there. I'll use this as an example. This is the top of a let's consider this the top of a Tormek wheel. And this is our knife edge. The very top of this, even though it's round, at the very peak of it, where you're touching, it's actually quite flat. It's only round as you go further out and around the circumference of this wheel. So on a Tormek, where we're bringing down our thin kitchen knife and touching the very top of this wheel and sharpening, we are not really creating a hollow grind. It's almost perfectly flat, meeting perfectly flat. And what I'm saying is that if there is some angle to this circle, it's such a small amount, it's not really considered, in my opinion, a hollow grind. Now, could you do a hollow grind? Yeah, well, if we were going way flatter and hitting the wheel further back and removing more surface area behind where we're sharpening, you could create a hollow grind, but on a kitchen knife, it would be really also quite difficult to do because it's already incredibly thin. So when people say that a Tormek's terrible because it creates a hollow grind, it's just not really accurate. It doesn't mean that you can't do a hollow grind on it. It doesn't mean that you couldn't take a much thicker knife and an angle to where you would be grinding more out of that primary bevel to create a hollow behind it. My point being is that most of these do not apply when we're talking kitchen knives. They just don't. It's not weak, and it's not really a hollow grind when you're using it on a very traditional kitchen knife. So enough said about that. Let's take a look at some of these under the scope, and I'll just show you a couple of these things real quick. I also going to show you a new thing that I got in. So I wanted to show you guys this real quick. This is a high deal magnifying glass, but it's digital. So you turn it on, and it has all the features that I like in a digital microscope for knife sharpening, but it's super portable. So you can see it has adjustable LEDs underneath. It has zoom levels, and it has a small plastic shroud where we can hold it up against something, and it has a fixed focus, but this works good for knives. The Mora knife that I wanted to show you, and we will put it up against the magnifier. Okay, so I got the max light turned on. Okay, so we are at max magnification, but do you see there is no secondary bevel on here? It goes straight down from the grind all the way to the end. And this is a true Scandi grind right there. Now here's the hollow ground skinning knife I told you about. And you can almost see, do you guys see, like, you can almost tell there's a hollow there. You can kind of see it. You can almost see that little slope there. And even from the way that the light is hitting, it's creating a shadow. And then we come up to what? We come up to a secondary bevel. And there's the secondary bevel on this knife. And I got to tell you, I am blown away with the quality of this little magnifying glass. Look how great that looks. And this thing was like 30 bucks. You can't beat it. Now this is an interesting one. This is a Mora knife that I have used and shown a million times. This is my super beater shop knife. I put a convex grind on this knife with a Tormek machine, and you can do a convex grind on a Tormek. And then recently I decided I didn't want the convex grind on there anymore. I took it off, and I'll show you this under here, and you can see, so there's a little bit of the old bevel still back there, but you can see it's going, again, this is a straight grind going down, and this is kind of a Scandi grind, except for I could have went a little bit deeper in the back there and brought that a little bit further back. And then let me grab a kitchen knife. So here's the kitchen knife that I was showing you earlier. And as you can see, you can barely even see where that primary bevel is. It's just a flat grind. So let's take a look in here. And there's our edge. So a flat grind with a secondary bevel, which is our sharp part of our knife. Not really what we would consider a hollow grind. And another one of the cool features of this is it can actually take pictures. So if I hit this middle button, it will snap a photo of what I have in there. Let's take a quick look in the menu, and that'll tell us how many. It can go up to, I have it set on the highest resolution. It can do 16 megapixel photos, which is pretty cool because that gives you a lot that you could magnify. And it has a little tiny SD card, one of those micro SD cards right here in the side. And I figured I would show you that. This is pretty cool. And I think a lot of you guys would probably like this even over a microscope. And this would be really great for the TS Prof people out there, because you can just bring this to the knife as opposed to having a microscope, because as I've shown before, I do like my wireless digital microscope, but I really love this as well. Because if I'm using my TS Prof, I'm not going to necessarily want to take something out of these jaws here, but I can very easily bring my digital magnifying glass over and put it up against the knife and take a look at whatever I need to see there. Okay, let's finish this video out with something really important, and here's some free tips for you. Here is something that I do to every single knife that comes in my shop. And no, it's not the cleaning of them after I'm done. So I just finished sharpening these. And yes, I do clean them, but that's not what I'm going to talk to you about. What I want to talk to you about is the importance of cut testing. And every single blade that comes in my shop for sharpening and then leaves gets cut tested. And you know, you'll see a lot of people with best testers, and I have a best tester, and the best tester is cool, but I don't use the best tester to test cut every knife. It's just not necessary. I actually use my best tester really for testing out new sharpening processes. If I want to try something to see if something works better than something else, or when I'm trying different stropping techniques to see if something works better than something else, because it gives me a much more distinctive score, since it's, you know, it measures foot-pounds with a number. In reality, test that tells me the absolute most of all about a knife, not so much process. So like I said, the best tester I like for process, to see if I'm going to change something, if I'm going to add something new to what I'm doing, is it going to give me a better result? That's where I really love the best tester. But for just the general condition of any knife that comes in my shop, I do a paper cut test. And I've said this many times before, this is my favorite thing to use for that. This is the Uline catalog. I keep a stock of them, you'll see. So this is ones that are ready for testing. I have individual pages over here. I have a whole entire another Uline catalog right there. Now, I just saw this the other day. This just came to me because of the new 2x42 I got. Was Grizzly has a catalog, which is pretty cool because I like Grizzly tools. But I never knew they had a catalog until I bought the 2x42, and they sent me a catalog, and man, this is very much like the Uline catalog. Pages have the about the same thickness, so you could probably get this as well. I will put a link in so you can get yourself on the Uline catalog. They send that out a couple times a year, so that's really nice, because literally one Uline catalog will last you, depending on how much cut testing you're doing, it will last you which could last you a year or more. Just depends on how you do your cut tests. Let's talk about the cut tests because they're super important and I always do them, always. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're cutting on the non-glued side. So you will have a glued side depending on how you rip them out. Sometimes I'll cut that side away so that I can use it if I want, but make sure you're not cutting on the glued side, especially if there's glue still on it. And I have a very specific way that I do my cut tests. It tells me a whole lot about the condition of every knife, and I will test every single one of these knives before it leaves the shop. I do it with every customer, every knife. I never send a knife out of here that has not been cut tested. Sometimes when I go through these, I might find one and I go, oh, something's not right with this, and I'll go back and retouch it up. So here is how I perform my cut test. So the first thing I do is a push cut. So I'm looking to see, will this push through the piece of paper? And you can see that was pushing really well. So then the next thing I do is I want to see, is it going to push at different stages of this knife? So I will go down this knife all the way like that and push cut in all different spots along the blade. Then the final test I do is a slice cut. Now, why do I do the slice cut? Because the slice cut is going to tell me if there's a chip in the blade. So if you're going down, all of a sudden you get stuck on something, you know there is a chip there. So this knife is good to go. And I'm still on just one page of paper. So I'll show you. And now I'm going to go to the next knife. Is it push cutting? Yes. Is it push cutting in different stages? Yes. Is it slice cutting? Beautifully. That knife's done. Next. Okay. Push. Yes. Push cutting in different spots along the knife. Yes. Slice cutting. Yes. Next knife. Same piece of paper still. Is it push cutting? Yes. Is it push cutting at all the different stages of this knife? Yes. Is it slice cutting? Yes. No chips. That one's done. And again, next knife. Is it push cutting? Yes, beautifully. How does it feel along the entire thing? Pushes, little pushes, little pushes, little pushes down to the tip. Good. How's our slice feel? Beautiful. Done. And you can see, you get the idea. This is what I do with every single knife. Is it pushing? Checking that push, and then doing a slice cut test. So you can see out of one piece of paper, what I test, almost every knife that was in that pile. So you don't have to waste a ton of them. You don't have to use one piece of paper on every single blade. And that is what I do. Now, if I find something that doesn't seem right, then I will pull it out. Another thing that sometimes happens, sometimes your first cut might feel rough and then you go back and it starts cutting fine. Sometimes the thing that you might have a little tiny bit of burr that might be left on a knife. And sometimes the paper cut test is the thing that will pull that tiny little bit off, and you know it, and then it's good to go. So if the first time you do it, it's a little rough, but then it's fine right after. And this is interesting. This is a left-handed knife. They even have on there lefty. He said, oh, my wife's a lefty. Sometimes you'll see those left-handed knives. And again, same thing. And that's it. So I wanted to show you that. I wanted to tell you why I do it that way. You can see the importance of them. These all look great. You can see they've all been polished up. He's had a lot of oxidation. He brought in 25 knives, which is a lot. My record, I think, is still 27 that someone brought in once. And now they'll get knife sleeves on them and they'll be ready to go. But this is only about, it's not even half the order. I have 16 more to do. The rest of the knives were small. So I did all the big knives first. And now I'm going to do all the small knives next. and this order will be done. This one's really big. I've shown you guys before. It's in my Amazon store. I do get those uncut 18-inch knife paper sleeves, and I like to keep those around because this is what happens sometimes. So I have my pre-made ones that are a lot cheaper that I get from China, made specifically for me with my name and my business on them. I get my smaller supplier that is in my Amazon store, and I still order from these guys because I will get 18-inch ones that are uncut. And you can see this is a really long blade. My normal size ones, which are cut to 12 inches, you can see that would be sticking out. So that's where these come in handy. If I have an extra long knife, I just make a custom cut one for it. Here's another good example. A big giant carving knife. Might have to go up into my storage. I think I'm gonna need one size bigger. Unless that was just sticking a little bit there. Let's see. Yeah, it's getting a little stuck here down in, but you get the idea. Or I could just go with, I could just put one of my large ones on it too. That's the other option. I keep a big supply of these up in my attic that's over the shop. That's why I like to get the 18-inch ones every so often, because you do get some of these blades that will come in that are bigger than 12 inches, and it is nice to have a little bit of something for every size you might encounter. And that's it. So have a great day. Hope these videos have helped you out today. If you haven't, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And the other thing I would say is make sure you take the time to check out the links that I put in the descriptions to all the videos. If you're looking for things, I do have links to paper sleeves and all those different things out there. I try and put those so you guys can find them things easily. And that's it. So let's end this video and have a great day, everybody.